Hi kids at New Life, Bernie here again. This is an optional extra activity for you to do this week. You will need an adult to help you with this, and you will need some ingredients. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to tell you what we're doing, and then I'm going to tell you what you need. And there'll be an opportunity for you to pause the video and go and make sure you've got all the ingredients. You may need to get an adult to go to the shop for you if it's not already there. Okay, so what are we making? We're going to make some pita bread. So these are little loaf-style breads that have an air pocket inside or a little place where you can cut a pocket and put some fillings inside them. Now, these are similar size to the loaves that the boy would have had, his 5 loaves that he would have had, that he shared, that Jesus used to feed the 5,000 people. So we're making some pita bread wraps. Okay, so what will you need? You will need a bowl. So I've got my jug here I'm using because it's glass and you'll be able to see. You're going to need a wooden spoon or something to mix with. You're going to need a heavy based baking tray, and I've got 8 pieces of baking paper that I've chopped up. So from my large sheet, you're going to need those. You're going to need some yeast. You'll only need 1 teaspoon of yeast. I've got it in little sachets here, but you can also buy it in a big tub. You'll need a teaspoon of sugar. You will need 1 1/4 cups of lukewarm water. So that just means that you've got it out of your tap just before the water gets hot. So it's not cold and it's not hot, it's just warm. You will need a teaspoon of olive oil and some extra to put in your bowl. You're going to need, this is my little pot of salt, a teaspoon of salt. And I've got 3 cups. You can either use plain flour or I've used baker's flour. So baker's flour here. And a little bit of extra flour for sprinkling as well, or in case you put too much water in, just to make sure you get that right mix of dough. So this is the ingredients you need, and they're going to come up on the screen now, and you can pause the video and go and get them. Right, on the screen now. All right, so you have all of your ingredients and now we're ready to get cooking. So the first thing we need to add to our bowl is our teaspoon of yeast. So we're popping that into our bowl, and then we need to add 1 teaspoon of sugar. So into our bowl we have our yeast and our sugar. Then we can add our lukewarm water. So I'll just give that a feel, make sure it's not cold. All right. Adding our lukewarm water. Then we're going to give this a bit of a mix. Whisk it up a little bit. And then you're going to let this sit for 5 minutes. If you leave it for a little bit over 5 minutes, that's okay, but 5 minutes at least. We want to let that sit. So I'm going to pause my video and we'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay, so we've rested our yeast and water and sugar mix for 5 minutes. Now it's time to add the rest of our ingredients. So we are going to add 1 teaspoon of olive oil. You can use another oil if you like. I just always use olive oil. So we're adding 1 teaspoon of olive oil. Then we're going to add our flour. 3 cups of plain flour or baker's flour, or you could use bread flour. So 3 cups of flour. Going to add that in. You can add it all in. So you can always add a little bit extra water if we need to. We don't want our dough to be too dry, and we don't want it to be too wet. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt, and never add your salt on top of your yeast. Always have the flour in between. Okay, so we've got our yeast and water and sugar. We let it rest, and then we've added our oil, then we've added our flour, and then we added our salt after that. And now we have to give it a good mix. So we're mixing it up, and we just need to be careful we don't make a mess here. Mixing it up, and it will look a bit dry at first, but keep mixing it all in. It might get a bit tough. There might come a time when you want to get your hands in there and use your hands if it's too hard with the spoon. Alright, so I think my dough is a bit dry and flaky, and that's okay. See how it looks like paper, shredded paper almost, right? That's good. That is what we want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a bit of an extra sprinkle of some flour onto the bench. So make sure you've started with a very clean bench. Put our flour down, and then I'm going to put my mix here, and I'm going to squish it all together. You can have lots of fun with this. If there's more than one kid at your house, you could break it up into half each or a quarter each, depending on how many kids, and all get in on the fun and help. It might be a bit much for your little hands to do if you're a bit little. So we want to squish it, and it will feel a bit wetter as you go along, and that's good. That's what you want. So that means you're doing a good squishing. Lots of squishing. All right. Once you see it squished in enough, instead of just using your fingers, you can use this part of your hand too. Watch, I can squish, but I can also use that part of my hand. And this is doing something we call kneading. So we're kneading our dough. So remember, if you've got little fingers and hands, you might want to break it and do it in two separate lots. So this is going to take a little while. So knead yours along. And you want it to be a nice, as smooth as you can get dough. All right, do this side. How are you going with yours? Whew. It's a bit of a workout, isn't it? Even for me, with bigger hands than you. So if your adult needs to help you, that's okay. You can pause the video and do yours if you like, if it takes longer than me. All right. Once your dough is all kneaded, you'll know it's ready when you can see it's stretchy and nice and smoothish. Doesn't have to be totally smooth, but it has a bit of an elasticity to it because it's got that yeast in it. If you've separated it into lots of balls, now's the time to make it into one big ball like this. And then get your bowl that you used, clear out any of the excess flour, and pop that in the bin. I'll just pour it in there. Then you're going to put in a bit of extra olive oil. So I'm going to use my oil sprayer, but you could just pour some in the bottom. And then we're going to pop our dough into our bowl. And with a clean tea towel, we're going to cover it up. And we need to let this rest and rise for 1 hour or until it's twice the size it was before. So you'll be able to see where in your bowl it's filling up to and then think about what twice the size looks like, or 1 hour. Make sure you put it somewhere nice and warm. So you might put it in your oven that's turned off. If it's nice and sunny outside, you could put it outside in the sun. Or if your laundry's the warmest room in the house, or your bathroom with the heat lamp on, put it somewhere nice and warm. Let it rise for 1 hour until it's twice as big as it was before. And then I'll show you what to do when we come back. All right, now's a good time to preheat your oven. So put your baking paper over here. We're going to use that in a moment. Get your heavy base baking tray and get an adult to put it in the oven for you. And then you're going to set your oven to 250 degrees Celsius. And you're going to put the oven tray in there because we want the oven tray, a heavy backed one, to be nice and hot when we put our pita breads in the oven. So you will need an adult to help you with this. If you don't have an oven or a heavy back tray, you can fry them in a fry pan as long as it has a lid that can go on it. So I'm put this in the oven and then we can get going with the recipe. So heavy baked baking tray in the oven, and the oven set to 250 degrees. Let's have a look at our dough. Here's our dough, and it is bigger than when we put it in before. Let me get it out. Because I oiled my bowl, it didn't stick, but I need to make sure I put some of this flour on my bench. And then have a look at how elasticy it's got now. And that is what we want. And what we're going to do now is you get to mix it up again, and you can punch it this time, you can stretch it, and we just want to get any air bubbles out that are in it, and we're going to break it into around 8. This is going to make 8, or you can make 5 if you want to be more true to the story. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, I think we just want to make sure that our loaves are going to be fairly even. And then we want to roll them into a nice tight ball. All right, so you can roll them, you can tuck it underneath, and we roll them into a nice ball. So rolling, or flatten it out and make a disc like that, and then tuck it all. See how I'm tucking it? And that's making a nice ball like that. So we want to get all of them into a nice ball like that, and we can tuck it in or we can roll it. Whatever you can manage is okay at this point. However you make your dough into a ball. How are you going with yours? Making your dough into a ball? Eight balls. And then we actually have to leave these sit. So these need to sit for another 15 minutes. So I like to spray them with a little oil so they don't dry out, and then pop my tea towel over. And we're going to let those sit for 15 minutes. And when you come back, you'll need a rolling pin. Okay, so we have let our little dough balls rest for 15 minutes. And now we're going to roll them into discs. Pop them on our pieces of baking paper, and we are going to let them rest again after that. So let's get rolling. You put some flour down on your bench and make sure your rolling pin has some flour on it too. And then you're going to roll it, and we want it to be more of an oval shape than a circle, so a little bit longer, like this. Just like that. Make sure it's got some extra flour on the bottom, and then place it on your paper like that. So rolling it into our oval with our rolling pin and popping it on there. A little bit of extra flour each time, because we want a bit of flour on the bottom of our paper so that it's separating it. So it's going to help it not stick. A bit of flour each time. Roll. Bit of flour. Rolling. Okay. Roll. Like that. Don't forget, occasionally you might need a bit of flour on your rolling pin, unless you've got a non-stick one. Alright, last one, bit of flour. And down there. Alright, so we're letting those to rest for another 15 minutes. So before you let them rest for 15 minutes, clean your bench, put them all in a nice little row like this, and use your tea towel to cover them up a bit so they don't dry out. Okay, so we've rested our breads, our flatbreads, and now we're going to pop them into the oven on the hot trays, and they take about 4 to 5 minutes to cook, or until they're a little bit browned. So I'm going to pop them in the oven. You'll need an adult to help you with this bit, because you've got to put it in onto the hot tray. So my tray can fit 3 at a time. So, and I've got Well, if I turn around that way, I might be able to fit 4. Yeah, we'll try and fit 4. 4 on each tray. I've got 2 trays in there, so I should be able to cook all mine all at once. Good. Cooking them for 4 to 5 minutes until they're a little bit puffed up or browned on top, whichever happens first. Some might puff and some might not. All right, I'm ready to get our pita breads out of the oven. So don't forget to get the adults to do this part because it's going to be hot. So we'll get our pita breads out of the oven and have a look at these. They look lovely. And we're going to put them onto a plate, or I've got a board here. Have a look at that. They've got puffed up and a little bit brown on top. That's perfect. That's how we want them. They've got a big air pocket inside. A pocket to put your filling. Some of them won't be that puffed up, and that's okay. Here they go how they want. So once you've got one, we get our other tray out. I'll put this one over here. And I think my other ones were on the bottom shelf, so they need a little bit longer. But what we're going to do when we've got our pita breads is we're going to cover them with our clean tea towel, with our dry tea towel, so that they don't dry out, and we'll be able to enjoy those later. So I hope you guys enjoy making your own pita breads. Send me through some pictures if you do it, and have fun and enjoy eating these delicious homemade pita breads. Bye.